A man in India's central Raipur city has a strange fascination for collecting liquor bottles of different shapes. With a collection of over 1,000 liquor bottles in his room, anyone might mistake this 67-year-old for a drunkard. But Mukund Lal Rathore is not interested in their contents, but the many different shapes and sizes they come in. Rathore, living in Raipur, capital of India's central Chhattisgarh state, says his fascination for the curious bottles has been with him for the last 40 years. The first bottle was given to him by a liquor company. The eagle-shaped bottle so enamored him that he started off the collection. The collection ranges from bottles in the shapes of books and daggers to those in the shape of eagles, flasks, and even a bunch of grapes. The best thing about Rathore's collection is that they are all presents given by his friends. Rathore says that he wants to enter his collection in the Limca Book of Records, the Indian version of the Guinness Book of World Records. He added that it gives him great pleasure to show people from far-flung areas his unique collection. A vintage car museum in India's northwestern Udaipur city houses some of the rarest and the oldest cars from the time of the British era. The 16-odd cars attempt to bring alive the grandeur and glamour of cars in the early part of the 20th century. The collection comprises of Chevrolets and Vauxhalls, Rolls-Royce and Cadillac, some of them driven by the erstwhile kings of the country. Originally a petrol pump garage, the place was converted into a museum when tourists started coming in large numbers to see the collection. Yogender Singh, manager of the Vintage Car Museum, said the number of tourists was constantly on the rise. Dozens of foreign and local tourists described the collection as incredible. A former king of Udaipur had imported all the cars from the European and American companies. The fleet of cars include a 1939 convertible Cadillac that drove the Queen of England during her visit to Udaipur in 1960. Millions of rupees were spent to rebuild the cars from imported spare parts. Vintage cars command a fabulous value in the domestic market, and they fetch even higher prices abroad. But local owners are banned from exporting their cars following a law implemented in 1979, which prohibits exports of cars manufactured before 1945. It's winter. The temperature is well below zero. In fact, it's minus 20 Celsius outside. But that hasn't dampened the spirits of a group of elderly Russian skaters. Appropriately named Inspiration, members of this skating troupe of Russian old-age pensioners say for them, the secret of feeling young is ice skating. A group of friends started Inspiration about 10 years ago, mainly for fun and socialising. About 4 years ago, they were offered a chance to perform as a troupe. They enjoyed it so much that now they appear at skating events in and around Moscow all through the winter season. But it's not the money that drives them. They don't get paid for appearances. For them, it's the simple pleasure of skating and the feeling, they say, that all the aches and pains of old age seemingly leave them when they put on their skates and take to the ice.
Все слышат? Подготовление вступительных миньонов. Раз, мужчины подходят. Чуга и снова. Раз, два. И так 4. Вставайте на свои места. Закончили.
There are 60 old age pensioners who are members of Inspiration. The oldest is aged 82 and a World War II veteran. The troupe make their own outfits for the performances and say they plan to apply to the Moscow Mayor's office for funding for the next winter season. The flavours of his ice cream might be straightforward, but it's the way Apichar Chai Purukchat sells them that makes his ice cream stall one of the most popular around. Apichar's preparation for work must be unique amongst ice cream salesmen the world over. He dresses in a black silk suit designed for martial arts before praying. His sales technique is original as well. Serve your ice cream in a kung fu style that guarantees entertainment as well as a cool, sweet dessert for the residents of Nakhon Pathom, a small provincial town 80 kilometres from Bangkok. The kung fu style is something Apichar has been perfecting for 15 years at his sales pitch outside the town's main Buddhist temple. It involves tossing scoops of ice cream in the air and twirling around, catching the ice cream in a bowl behind the back or under the arm, all against the background of traditional music. And his customers agree, with some of them returning dozens of times to watch and enjoy the show. Apichar's fascination with martial arts dates back to his childhood, when his parents would tell him stories about Chinese folk heroes and their mastery of karate or kung fu. He has been practicing the arts for the last 20 years. The flamboyant salesman enjoys audience participation as well, flinging scoops of ice cream across the main square, where hungry passers-by try to catch it in a bowl or even straight to their mouths. It just goes to show that a little imagination can turn a mundane sales job into a source of entertainment and joy. Fancy skiing in the middle of summer? Then head to Dubai in the United Arab Emirates to experience a winter wonderland right in the middle of the arid Arabian Gulf. Dubai-based Landmark Exhibitions has a show called Snow World, where children and adults can enjoy more than 400 tonnes of snow and ice all year long. Snow World is located in a huge tent-like structure in the middle of Dubai's Creek Park. Outside, a camel takes children for rides in the sweltering heat, while inside, visitors wear heavy coats to look at massive ice sculptures in sub-zero temperatures. The exhibition has attracted tourists from many Gulf Arab countries such as Saudi Arabia. Many visitors had never seen snow before. Youssef El Hindi, Vice President of Landmark Exhibitions, says the exhibit is the first of its kind in the Middle East. With outside temperatures ranging up to 45 degrees, it was quite a challenge to be able to maintain the required -7 to -10 degrees inside. It is something that hasn't been done before in the region and which the organisers are rightly proud of. The ski slope, which is 10 metres wide and 45 metres long, costs 1.5 million dirhams or $400,000 and took 4 months of continuous work to build. Landmark Exhibitions is also planning an even bigger extravaganza, a 120 million dirham ski slope which will be 1 kilometre long. At last, the local people can experience the snow, snowmen and skiing that they read about in school. Revellers in the town of Lewes in southern England each year celebrate Bonfire Night with spectacular parades and fireworks displays. The Bonfire Night celebrations mark the failure of a plot by Catholic conspirators in 1605 to kill King James I and blow up Parliament. People set off fireworks and burn effigies of the conspirator Guy Fawkes, who was discovered with barrels of gunpowder under the Houses of Parliament. Around 50,000 people attend the event, watching the 5 fireworks societies parade around the town. Each of the societies also march to the War Memorial on the main street to mark Remembrance Day. In Lewes, the inhabitants take the celebrations more seriously, remembering 17 Protestants that were burned at the stake in the town in 1557. These martyrs are commemorated with 17 burning crosses carried by the Cliffet Bonfire Society. The Cliffet Bonfire Society begins the march in their Viking costumes while carrying "No Potpourri" banners. Following the march, society members carried on the tradition of racing tar-filled barrels to the town bridge. The society members, or bonfire boys, parade around the town centre for around 3 hours. Many are dressed in the bonfire boys' traditional striped tops, whilst others were to be seen in fancy dress, including members of the Borough Society who were dressed as Zulu warriors. The societies are all fiercely competitive about creating the most impressive show. Each society prepares a tableau and effigies of topical figures that are paraded through the town. Anti-war effigies of US President George W. Bush were seen alongside the traditional Guy Fawkes. The loose celebrations date back to 1679, when an effigy of the Pope was burnt on a bonfire after false allegations of a plot. This reflected the still bitter divisions between Catholics and Protestants at that time. After parading through the streets, the societies each head for their own bonfire sites to watch their fireworks, making for spectacular displays across the town. But before the displays begin, society members dressed as Catholic clergymen stand on a platform and have fireworks thrown at them. The modern celebrations with parades and competing bonfire societies date back to the mid-19th century. Only 2 world wars, an outbreak of typhoid in 1874 and floods in 1960 have caused postponement of the event. Even the floods in October 2000, which saw much of the town underwater, failed to scupper the fun. Just like the abacus, the Gorlovsky credit cards are primitive, but simple and reliable. Though they look nothing like their flashy, magnetic encoded, universally recognised Western counterparts, the cards have become the primary currency for the 100-odd farm workers and their families living in the area, some 800 kilometres northeast of Moscow. When a villager buys bread or eggs from the store, then the shopkeeper subtracts that cost from the total credit sum and records the new amount on the card and in the store's databank, in this case, a school exercise book. The cards are accepted at the farm stores spread out across several villages where they can be used to buy food and household items at competitive prices. There is one thing, however, that they can't buy: vodka, or any other alcohol for that matter. And that is a good thing, say Gorlovsky's women, as it stops the drunkards drinking all their money away. Gorlovsky, like all rural Russia, has been hard hit by 10 years of post-Soviet economic collapse. For most farms, the crisis has led to a severe shortage of cash, barter trading, and salary delays of months. It has also led to alcoholism and drinking binges of epic proportions. Because Gorlovsky's farm pays its workers on the credit cards, the farm has rubles to buy fuel and equipment and to pay for local taxes. The farm management says the cards have literally kept them alive and working. They've never had a case of fraud or credit card theft, and nobody has ever hacked into their account database. But perhaps that is because everything is stored in paper and guarded by the office cat. But vodka is sold in Gorlovsky at the few private stores, and only for cold hard cash. Even the male farm workers who admit being partial to vodka can see that the card system has its merits. Farm director Ivan Mantantsev, who invented the credit card, says it was the measure that Gorlovsky Farm had to take in order to survive what he believes were ill-conceived federal reforms. And local officials give him much praise for keeping his area as a relative oasis of stability amid economic devastation. Mantantsev says that the important thing for him is not how people are paid, but that they are paid. He even hopes that the Gorlovsky credit card's reputation will allow it to be accepted throughout the region and beyond. In the United States, turkey enthusiasts have been out in force for the Grand National Turkey Calling Championship in Charlotte, North Carolina. The contest is part of a National Wild Turkey Federation's annual outdoor convention, which draws about 30,000 sportsmen from various regions of the United States every year. Contest participants used all kinds of tools to help perfect their turkey call, including box and slate calling devices, mouth diaphragms, and custom-made tubes. Each person had 6 minutes to imitate 6 different turkey sounds, called the putt, cutting to the excited hen, the fly-down tackle, the plain yelp of a hen, the cluck and purr, and the kiki run. Approximately 25 years ago, in the historic Avanos district of the central Anatolian city of Nevşehir, mostly known as Cappadocia, the world's maybe weirdest, but also most comprehensive collection adventure began with a pinch of hair of a French tourist. The collection was going to make the pottery maker Galip Kodaku's shop the most visited shop of the region. Galip owns more than 1 million pieces of hair in the shop. It started with him snipping a lock of hair from the head of a French girl who stayed with him for 3 months. He just wanted to keep a pinch of hair as a memento, but who would guess this would turn out to be the biggest hair collection in the world? He says that when tourists see locks of hair on the wall, they want to add their own to the collection. In the pottery business for more than 1/4 of a century, Galip says he always wanted to teach the business to women in the region, and that is why he decided years ago to host each year 10 of his customers for 15 days in the region and teach them pottery making. The period coincides with the hair collection period. He only collects women's hair. The famous pottery maker, nominated in the Guinness Book of World Records, plans to enlarge the shop in order to accommodate more pieces for his collection. Customers in a cafe in the western Turkish city Izmir drink their coffee against a setting of sculptures of faces made out of shoes, watching them from the walls. An artist living in Izmir is now exhibiting his work of shoe face sculptures in the cafe. Old and used shoes find new faces in Fikret Atay's hands. By folding, wrapping and cutting, Atay turns a shoe into a smiling face. It started a few years ago when he was bored at home and experimented with making something out of an old pair of shoes. And that was the start of his artistic journey. After working for a year, Atay gained the first recognition from his shoe faces. Some collectors from France commissioned 200 shoe sculptures from him, and the requests and commissions continued to be made. He now sees people's feet in a weird kind of way, assessing the shoes people are wearing for suitability as faces. Atay has some new projects he's planning. He wants to use some old clothes this time as a material for his new project, the reproduction of famous paintings out of clothes and shoes, especially a Mona Lisa. Building sandcastles is no longer something just for children. Germany's Sand Sculpture Festival on the Baltic Sea coast attracts more than 70 international artists. The 4-week-long festival has opened in the Baltic Sea resort town of Travemünde near Lübeck and is bound to attract not only little children on holidays. An area of 15,000 square meters has been dedicated to tell the medieval story of the port city of nearby Lübeck by building scenes and buildings from that time out of sand. But it's not just any sand. River sand has to be used because it is very young and the grains have edges. Sea sand is much older and the wind and water make the grains round. If you press the sand together in a wooden mold, it can get very strong, strong enough to sit on without breaking. "7,000 tons of specially made sand have been imported from the River Maas in the Dutch town of Kujic. The sand is then mixed with water and pressed into the wooden molds until it dries. Once the wooden molds have been removed, artists can get to work on the sand blocks using a variety of tools. Special tools were used to cut the sand, from cement trowels for large areas to small palette knives and even paintbrushes for detailed work. The sand has to be kept moist to be carved, and sculptors used water spray bottles and hoses as they worked. Only sand and water have been used to create the sculptures. Once finished, the structures are generally not damaged by the elements. Rainwater is absorbed by the sand and evaporates when it stops raining, leaving the structure intact. As the sand has been compressed so hard, the wind does not damage them either. The idea behind the project is to build a great sand sculpture, something that will really astonish people and give them something to remember. In the evenings, there is a sound and light show which combines to make a very impressive experience. Climbing the walls, hanging from banisters, and hiding in tight spaces may be familiar to any curious child. But a pair from Nottingham in the United Kingdom have turned it into a keep fit art form which is proving a remarkable hit. House Gymnastics has already established its own websites with members across the world. When you visit James Ford and Spencer Harrison at their house in Nottingham, finding both of them hanging from the door frame or cramped in a fridge would be no surprise. House Gymnastics is their brainchild, a hybrid of yoga, breakdancing, climbing and gymnastics. Child stuff. And that's really how they came up with the idea, by climbing around their house like children would. Moves are made within the home using furniture or permanent features and must be held for 3 seconds. They are graded between 1 and 5 stars, with 5-star moves being the most difficult. Each move has its own name, and the pair say the naming became as important as the move itself. It's also something for everyone. You don't have to be particularly fit, just ready to play. James and Spencer's artistic project took off big time, and one day, only 1 month after their website was installed, hits went from 20 to 8,000. They've started selling t-shirts, and now there's even talk of a game show and a stage performance. And as for injuries and breakages, that's just part of the game, but nothing much to worry about. So landlords, no need to worry. Central Park is a natural refuge of nature situated in the centre of New York City's concrete canyons. And it is a refuge that is passionately protected from development by official agencies and civic groups alike. But in a telling change brought on by shifting attitudes toward public space in the wake of the disaster of September 11, this has now started to change. The Whitney Museum of American Art, in collaboration with the Public Art Fund, have installed 5 contemporary artworks in the park. The works are all part of the Whitney Biennial in Central Park, a first for the museum and the first approved display of contemporary art in the park in many years. The Whitney Biennial is held each year and is a showcase for contemporary American art. The work that has attracted the most attention since its installation is a 50-foot stainless steel structure called Bluff. The work's heavy industrial plates form a 2-foot wide trunk that supports more than 5,000 pounds of cantilevered branches welded together from more than 24 different diameters of steel pipes and rods. Artist Roxy Payne designed and built the work for the biennial. Payne said he wanted to create a work that blends with the other trees in the park, but never losing its man-made, artificial nature. Another installation is a work by artist Kiki Smith. Sirens and Harpies is a collection of small bronze sculptures arranged on 2 large boulders just outside the entrance to the Central Park Zoo. The small figurines are a combination of half-bird, half-human features. Smith said she was delighted to have the opportunity to display her works. New Yorkers had various reactions to the newly discovered presence of art in Central Park. A massive water fight was staged in Thailand as the country celebrated its Songkran festival. April is the hottest month of the year in Thailand and also the beginning of the Buddhist New Year, giving locals and tourists an excuse to have what can only be described as one big water party. It was a tame but traditional start to the Songkran festival at one of Bangkok's most popular temples, Wat Po. Tourists and locals took part in an ancient ceremony pouring pure water over Buddha statues and each other. The festival is celebrated in many countries across Southeast Asia at this time of year. In Thailand, the water festival is said to be a time when people can purify themselves and be blessed as they enter the new year. Temple worker Athisak Pathip Surat says the festivities bring great happiness to Thai people. But it was less tradition than party in Khao San Road, a popular destination for foreign backpackers. By mid-morning, the water gangs with their water guns were waging water warfare. Both Thais and tourists joined in the fun. Along with the water, it's also part of the ritual for Thais to cover themselves and each other in talcum powder, and few tourists along this road could avoid being smothered in the powdery paste. The madness will continue for 2 more days, and then it'll be time to pack the water pistols away for another year. Sangomas are traditional healers in South Africa. This healing has in the past always been the domain of black women, but some white women are turning to the traditional methods of medicine. Patrick Mavubu is being treated for chronic diarrhea, and he is happy with the treatment Janine Andrews has given him. Mavubu is lying on a narrow bed and watches as Andrews goes on her knees on the cold concrete floor, lights the dried mapepo and chants softly under her breath. Once she is finished, she comes over to the bed and chats to Mavubu. She rubs ointment into his body and massages his feet. She has also given him a bottle full of mutifrum herbs collected from a forest in a distant gorge, as well as from a garden where she grows the most popularly used plants. During a visit to the market on the pavement of a busy Durban street, Janine Andrews and fellow white Sangoma Buzi were greeted with curious stares as the 2 women shopped for roots and herbs. They performed dancing rituals in the street. She is not the only white person practicing as a Sangoma. Another woman known as Bizzare lives in a mansion, a seaside resort 30 kilometres south of Durban. In spite of the strange sight they might be for those used to the traditional African healers, Bizzare is very sincere about her practice. She said that it is a very important way of helping people, especially after they have tried more modern methods that have failed. The eyes aren't usually where one expects to find physical strength, but Pakistani daredevil Mohammed Sabir Sipra has proven otherwise, lifting 5 kilograms with the strength of his eyelids alone. To prove he is the strongest, Sipra has issued a challenge daring other stuntmen to match his feats of strength. Mohammed Sabir Sipra trained himself to lift weights with his eyelids after a freak accident gave him inspiration. He stuck a thick needle in his eyelid while applying surma, a protective herb, to his eyelid. He then got the idea that eyelids could hold weight and on a first attempt lifted 1 kilogram. He is now up to 10 kilograms and is determined to get to 20 kilos. And eyelids aren't the only place Sipra claims to have unusual strength. He can also lift 110 kilograms of weight with his teeth and hang from a rope using his mouth. Hoping to prove he is the strongest, Sipra has issued a challenge to the world, daring anyone to match his incredible feats. But he won't offer advice on how to go about it. It is a very dangerous stunt. Sipra said his weightlifting stunts are his sole source of income. With government assistance, he hopes to launch a foreign tour soon. The small northern German town of Lugde has hosted more than 25,000 spectators who flocked to Easter Hill to watch the annual Easter tradition of setting huge wooden wheels on fire and sending them down the hill. No one really knows when the tradition joined the Easter bonfires that burned throughout northern Germany on Easter Sunday night, but organisers say the sight is spectacular and the danger level is very high. Signs warn spectators to keep away from the starting point at the top of the hill, where the huge wooden wheels are stuffed with dry straw that turns into a blazing, moving bonfire when it is lit. Each wheel is 1.7 meters in diameter and weighs about 400 kilograms. Historical documents in other parts of Germany show that burning wheels were always used to symbolize light winning over darkness, either in the springtime or at midsummer. In addition, fires were often lit to plead to the gods for a good harvest. But most of the 25,000 spectators who watched from the top of the hill and at the bottom were probably more interested in the atmosphere and the spectacular sight rather than wondering where the tradition originated. The event, however, is not without its dangers. Spectators are kept far away from the track, but the wheels come dangerously close to fences. And firemen are on hand to put out the small brush fires the burning straw leaves along the way. After all 6 burning wheels arrive in the valley to the cheering crowd, the celebration is traditionally crowned with a display of fireworks. Can't play the guitar? With a lot of nerve but little shame, you too can be a rock star, playing the air guitar. The city of Oulu in northern Finland is as far from New Zealand as one can imagine. Yet people of Oulu queued to watch the performance of Toby Penaha, a Maori from Hastings, New Zealand, who along with 12 other finalists took to the stage to play the instrument that does not exist, the air guitar.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Turbinator with a song from Pantera. Let's go.
Toby had never been on a plane or travelled abroad. His life changed when his girlfriend put his name up for a national air guitar competition. Within minutes, he was the air guitar champion of New Zealand and got a ticket to the other side of the globe to compete at the annual World Championships in Oulu, a Finnish city some 200 miles south of the Arctic Circle. Dressed in a heavy metal t-shirt, leather trousers and Union Jack capped shoes, Penaha twirled his long curly hair to hard rock band Pantera, winning squeals of delight from the 2,500 strong, mostly Finnish audience.
All right, let's go. And Ernesto. Do you know what? I want to see some hands out there.
The art of playing the air guitar goes back to the 1970s when breathtaking electric guitar solos by bands such as Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin inspired teenagers throughout the world to grab their tennis rackets and mime their idols swinging and prancing around their bedrooms. The first air guitar championship was held in Oulu in 1996. Soon national championships sprang up around the world. It's a very big movement and a very pure art form according to those involved. Its strength lies in its total freedom. The music industry used to be like that. Air guitar is like the old music scene without the money, without the contracts, but keeping the screaming girls. The winner walked away with a real electric guitar, the second in his collection. This year it was a Flying Finn model, handmade especially for the occasion.